All right, we're going to talk about the development and its process. I'm going to give you a quick overview about how you develop a real estate property. If it's a piece of raw land, you start by looking at the zoning. What is the zoning on the property? Is it for single family? Is it for multifamily? Is it for commercial? Is it for industrial? And then you find out what you can do there. If you want to take a residential piece of property or lot and make it into multifamily, you got to go through a process that is called zoning. And what is zoning? Zoning is every property in the city of Philadelphia, or I believe anywhere in the world, has a zoning. What is allowed to be built in that lot or in that area? So that's already predetermined by the planning commission of the city, and then the neighborhood associations, and a lot of other inputs. So let's talk about this property that is zoned residential. And they come in many different codes, which you can look up on the city's website. So let's say you want to build a single family dwelling on a residential lot. In that case, you don't need zoning. Why? Because you're building a single family dwelling, which is residential, on a residential lot, right? But if you were going to build a duplex or triplex or fourplex on a residential piece of land, you need to go through zoning. So I'm going to walk you through the process of going as of right, which is when you build as the lot is zoned, and then we're going to go through the variance process. So residential lot, residential property, you don't need to go to zoning. What you need to do is you need to comply with the zoning now. In a residential lot, there is height restrictions. In Philadelphia, it's 38 feet high. If you want to build a house that is higher or taller than 38 feet, you need to go to zoning because you're not doing what is allowed to be used. So we're going to stay within the zoning requirements. You hire an architect to design the property. Once the design is done, you need to submit the plans to the building or license and inspection so you can get a building permit. Once you submit the plans and you get a building permit, then you can start construction. While getting the permit, you need to have a licensed contractor to apply for the permit because a licensed contractor is the one who's going to build it. It could be yourself as a contractor, it could be a third party. Once you have the building permit, you got to get a soil test on the property to make sure the soil is good for construction. So for that, you get a geotech engineer who's going to come out to the property, perforate the lot, take samples of the soil, and then say if it's good or not. Most of the time, it's okay. Sometimes it's not, but most of the time it's okay. Once you do that and it's okay, you hire the contractor and they can start with the excavation process. If you're going to have a basement. If you're not going to have a basement, you need to excavate. You can do what is called slab on grade, which is pretty much not having a basement. If you're going to get a basement, then they start the excavation process, and then they start putting in the forms to pour the foundation. Before the foundation is poured, the geotech engineer has to come out and make sure that that soil is still okay. Then you call license and inspections and they come and make sure that it's okay. Then you can pour the concrete to build the foundation. Once that's done, then you start framing the house. You start building the structure in wood or metal, however it was designed. That's called framing or the carpentry. Once that's done, then you got to call license and inspections to make sure the framing complies, and then if they pass it, you go to the next trade, which is the rough mechanicals. Plumbing, electrical, HVAC, sprinkler system if it's needed, and fire alarm if it's needed. Once the rough mechanicals are in place, you call license and inspections again, and they come out and make sure that it's all to code, and they approve it. Then you go into insulation and fireproofing. Fireproofing is making sure the areas that need to be resistant to fire are sealed, and then you insulate. Once you do that, you call license and inspections again, and they come out and approve it. Once that's done, you go into putting up the walls. The walls meaning putting the drywall up. Then once you put up the walls, then you start working on the flooring. You install the flooring. Then you paint the house. Then you put the molding or trim work. But before you do that, you got to install windows and doors. You do that before closing the walls. Then you do all the finished plumbing and finished electrical and finished HVAC, which is putting the light fixtures, putting the plumbing fixtures, putting the toilets, putting all the good stuff. Then, once you do that, you can call L&I out again, and they close the permit because the construction has finished. Okay? Now, we have in the city of Philadelphia something that is called a tax abatement. Okay? I'm going to talk to you about that in a different module. Now, this is when you build by right. You build what is supposed to be built on that piece of land. Let's go to the next other process, which is when you get a variance, which means you need to get zoning. So let's say you want to take this piece of land that is zoned residential to build a multifamily, duplex, triplex, or quadruplex. You need to first apply to the Zoning Board of Adjustments, ZBA. You submit it, they're going to reject it because it doesn't comply with the zoning of the lot. Then you got to appeal that decision. And then you got to submit some other paperwork to appeal it. At this point, you need to have drawings of the basic schematic of the building that you're trying to build. Elevations and distributions. This process takes about 6 months, the zoning process. If the property is under an LLC, they need an attorney. If it's under an individual name, you don't need an attorney. Then you go to zoning, you go to the hearing, but before you go to the hearing, you got to go to the community. You got to get the support of the community if you're trying to change the zoning on this property. So what do? You meet with the community association. It's called RCO, Registered Community Organization. And you got to present your proposal to the community in a meeting. Sometimes you get support, sometimes you don't get support. If they don't support you, there is no chance you're gonna win at the ZBA. So if you get support at the community, they're going to give you a letter of support. They're going to send it to the ZBA. Then you appear at the date of the hearing. They hear your case, they see the letter of support, and 9 out of 10 times they will approve it. Once the zoning is approved, then you go back to your architect, and then now you can do the plans for building, and then you submit it to license and inspections to get a building permit. Then everything else follows just as I explained before. So that's the main difference. It's important that you know this process when you're going to talk to a developer or a contractor. Why? Because you got to have an idea what the process is like if you're going to help developers sell their properties, right? And you're going to learn about materials, different types of materials, different type of finishes. But that's afterwards. The basic thing that you need to know is zoning and how zoning operates. If you're going to build by right or you need a zoning variance. And this is all for development.